Adison's fingers glided over the controls of his sleek silver ship, the newest prototype designed for deep space exploration. Every gauge and screen pulsed with smooth blue light. Every sound hummed with a perfect rhythm. At least, that was how it had been when he left the orbital station behind. Now, several hours later, warning lights began to blink in sharp red bursts across the panel. He tapped a switch and frowned. The engine readings were steady, but the outer hull sensors kept flashing error codes. At first, he thought it was a minor calibration fault. Then the alarms grew louder, sharper, insistent. His heart beat heavier inside his chest as he leaned forward and sent out a short burst transmission. "This is Adison Cole, pilot of test craft Astra 1, experiencing mechanical errors. Requesting remote diagnostic link." His voice stayed steady, but there was a weight behind each word. Static was the only answer. No calm voice from mission control, no technician sending back a flood of numbers. Just a wall of white noise that hissed inside his helmet. He tried again, sharper this time. Astra 1 to control. Mechanical issue. Requesting verification. Still nothing. The silence of space pressed against him, broken only by the steady flicker of the warning lights. His eyes narrowed. He reached to adjust a long-range antenna, but the instant his hand brushed the control, the entire ship jolted. A shudder ran to the frame like a giant fist had struck it. Adison grabbed the yoke and steadied himself. Through the cockpit window, the black of space bent, and a strange planet swelled into view. It was not on his charts. No mission file had mentioned a world this far out. Its surface glowed faintly with green seas and jagged mountain ridges, surrounded by thin clouds that shimmered with unnatural color. He felt the hair on his arms rise. Something was wrong. A new alarm screamed. This time, it was a defense warning. The ship's automated voice cut through the cockpit. Target lock detected. Incoming energy signatures. Adison's pulse jumped. What target? Who is out here? He tightened his grip. His eyes darted across the screens, and then he saw it. Beams of light arcing up from the planet's surface. They were not natural. They were weapons. Hostile fire incoming. The voice was cold and calm. Adison slammed the thrusters open and banked hard to the left. The sleek ship dove, streaking across the edge of the planet's atmosphere, but the beams followed him. Each flashed toward his shields. The cockpit rattled. His stomach turned. "Control, this is Cole. I'm under fire. Repeat, I am under fire." He shouted into the comms, but only static hissed back. One beam struck the side of the ship, and fire tore across his console. Sparks jumped across his gloves. He fought the yoke, jaw clenched, trying to keep the nose steady. Another blast rocked the rear thrusters. The Astra 1 screamed as alarms filled the cockpit in a deafening chorus. Adison cursed under his breath. He knew he would not make it back to orbit. The planet's defense systems had already marked him as an intruder. He had no choice. Either he tried to crash as carefully as he could, or he burned up in the sky. With one deep breath, he sent one last signal, his voice raw. "This is Adison Cole. Ship is failing mechanical issues critical, attempting emergency landing." The cockpit shook violently as the Astra 1 plunged through the upper atmosphere. Flames licked across the viewports. Metal groaned. Bolts tore loose. Panels ripped away into the void. Adison strapped himself tight and locked both hands on the controls, guiding the wounded ship as best as he could. The ground rushed up at him. He could see green forest spreading across the horizon, cut through with rivers of shining silver water. He could see sharp mountains rising like teeth, and he could see the glow of strange alien towers hidden in the mist. The ship roared like a beast in pain. Adison gritted his teeth and pulled back with every ounce of strength left in his arms. The nose lifted, just enough to keep him alive. The Astra 1 crashed into the trees with thunder that shook the forest. Branches split apart, fire spread in sparks across the wreckage, and smoke poured into the air. The ship slid across the dirt, tearing a path of destruction until it finally came to a grinding halt against a ridge of stone. Silence fell. Only the faint crackle of fire remained. Adison coughed hard, his chest aching, but he was alive. The cockpit around him was a ruin of twisted metal. The warning lights had gone dark. His suit was torn, his helmet cracked, and the air inside his lungs carried a heavy taste of smoke. He dragged himself free from the wreck, one arm at a time, and stumbled onto the alien soil. The sky above glowed with two suns, pale and distant, their light weaving strange patterns across the forest floor. The air was cool and sharp, filled with scents he could not name. He sank to his knees, breathing heavily. He had sent out a distress call. He had done everything by the book, yet no one had answered. He was alone, on a world that had shot him from the sky. As his vision blurred, he thought he saw movement in the trees, a shadow slipping through the leaves, watching him with bright, curious eyes. And then his strength failed. The world went dark. When Adison opened his eyes again, the forest was gone. Instead, a dim glow flickered above him, warm and soft, coming from lamps carved out of crystal. He lay on a bed made of woven fabric, softer than anything he expected from a wilderness crash site. For a moment, he thought he was back on the station infirmary. But then he noticed the walls. They were not metal, not plastic, not human. They were living wood, twisted into arches that stretched high overhead. Strange symbols had been etched into beams, glowing faintly with a pale green light. The air carried the sweet scent of herbs and smoke. His body felt heavy, sore but alive. Someone had cleaned the cuts on his arms and wrapped them in smooth cloth. He tried to sit up, but a shadow shifted in the corner. A figure stepped forward, and Adison froze. It was a girl. At least, she looked like one. Her skin was pale, almost luminous, with a faint trace of silver that shimmered when the light touched her. Her hair fell in long, dark waves, tipped with strands that glowed faint blue, like fireflies caught in her locks. And her eyes were unlike anything human. Deep violet, almost liquid, watching him with a mixture of caution and fascination. She said nothing at first. She just stood there, holding a small bowl of water, as if unsure whether to approach. Adison's throat felt dry, his voice rough. You saved me?" The girl tilted her head slightly, like she was weighing the sound of his words. Then, in a low but clear voice, she answered, "You were dying. I did not want you to die." Her accent bent the words strangely, but he understood. Adison let out a shaky breath. "Where am I?" She hesitated, then moved closer, placing the bowl on a small table beside him. "My home. Hidden. You are not safe here. My people, they do not like outsiders." He swallowed hard. That much he already knew, considering their defense systems had nearly vaporized him. Then why bring me here? If they find out... Her eyes flickered with a strange light. "Because you are different. You fell from the sky. I have never seen a being like you before." For a moment, silence filled the space between them. Adison shifted under the thin blanket, covering him, suddenly aware of how exposed he felt. His flight suit had been damaged beyond use. He wore only the plain underclothes that clung to his skin. He noticed her eyes move across him, only for her to quickly look away, her pale face tinged with a faint glow of color. Adison coughed and pulled the blanket tighter. "Well, thank you for helping me." She nodded once, firm but quiet. Then she stepped back, as if distance made it easier for her to breathe. The sound of movement echoed outside. Voices, strange and musical, passed near the wooden walls. The girl stiffened, her eyes darting toward the door. Her hand went to a curved blade hanging by her side. For the first time, Adison saw her not as a curious savior, but as someone ready to defend, sharp and dangerous. She whispered quickly, almost like command, "Stay here. Do not make a sound." Adison opened his mouth to reply, but she was gone in a flash, slipping through the doorway with the silence of a predator. He sat back, his mind racing. He had trained for deep space travel, for mechanical failures, even for combat against hostile forces. But nothing had prepared him for this. A stranger on an alien world, saved by a girl who could easily hand him over to her people. The minutes stretched, heavy and uncertain. He listened, hearing muffled voices outside, too low to understand. Then footsteps approached again. The door slid open, and she stepped back inside. Her face was calm now, though her eyes still carried the sharpness of tension. "They are gone. Hunters passing by. They did not see you. Adison exhaled slowly. He had not realized he had been holding his breath until now. The girl studied him for a long moment, then finally spoke again. My name is Lyara. Adison nodded weakly. Adison. She repeated it softly, as if testing the sound. Adison. The way she said it made something inside him feel strange, like his name had never carried weight until it left her lips. Lyara moved back to the corner, where she sat cross-legged, her violet eyes still locked on him. She did not speak again, but she did not look away either. It was as if she was trying to memorize every detail of him, every motion, every breath. Adison lay back, staring at the ceiling of living wood, his body aching but his thoughts alive with questions. Who were her people? Why had they attacked his ship without warning? And why, out of all of them, had this one girl chosen to hide him instead of letting him die? As the hours passed, fatigue returned, dragging him back toward sleep. The last thing he saw was Lyara, still watching from the corner, her face touched with something between curiosity and shyness. And then the darkness claimed him again. Adison woke to the sound of faint humming. At first he thought it was a low vibration of an engine, a dream pulling him back to the cockpit of his broken ship. But when his eyes opened, he saw Lyara kneeling near the table, her hands moving across a set of small crystal shards. Each piece pulsed with light when her fingers touched it, and the glow joined together into patterns that floated in the air like soft ribbons. She noticed him stirring and paused. For the first time, he saw her lips curve into something close to a smile, small but real. You sleep heavily, she said. Adison stretched, wincing at the ache in his muscles. After crashing from the sky, I think I deserve a little rest. Her smile faded into something more serious. Your ship is gone. The hunters will find the wreck. They will know someone came here. Adison sat up slowly. Then I need to move. I cannot hide forever. Lyara shook her head quickly. No. If they find you, they will kill you. My people, they guard this world. They believe all outsiders bring danger. If they know I hid you, they will punish me too. Her voice lowered at the last words. There was a tremor in it that Adison had not heard before. She was not only protecting him, she was risking everything for him. He leaned forward, studying her face. Then why? Why risk yourself for me? She looked away, her violet eyes flickering. Because I wanted to know. I wanted to see if the stories were true. Adison frowned. What stories? Lyara hesitated, then answered in a whisper, as if even the walls might betray her. The stories of the sky people. Of humans. His breath caught. You know about humans? She nodded slightly. Old tales passed down. My people say humans are dangerous, that they wander the stars, bringing fire and war. But there are other stories, older ones, hidden ones. Stories that say humans carry something different, a strength that no other race has. A light. Her eyes lifted to his, searching. I wanted to see if it was true. Adison sat silent for a moment. He had heard many things about his own kind. Brave, foolish, destructive kind. But hearing it spoken by her, in this strange place, made him feel heavier. He did not know if he could live up to her idea of what a human might be. Before he could answer, the sound of voices rose outside again. This time they were louder. He could hear the footsteps of more than one. Lyara's face tightened. She quickly gathered the glowing shards, sweeping them into a cloth, and hid them beneath the table. Stay behind me, she whispered, standing tall, her hand once again on the curved blade at her side. The door opened, and two figures stepped in. They were taller than Lyara, dressed in armor that shimmered like metal but flexed like leather. Their eyes were the same shade of violet, but colder, harder. One of them spoke sharply in their tongue, the words fast and cutting. Adison did not understand, but he caught the way Lyara's shoulders stiffened. She answered quickly, her tone calm but firm. The taller one's eyes drifted toward Adison. For a heartbeat, Adison felt the weight of that gaze, piercing, suspicious. His hand twitched toward the knife at his belt, but Lyara stepped slightly in front of him, blocking the view. She spoke again, more firmly. Whatever she said made the two warriors exchange a look. Then After a long pause, they turned and left, their steps heavy against the wooden floor. The door closed. The silence they left behind was sharp as a blade. Adison exhaled. They were looking for me. Lyara nodded slowly. They know something fell from the sky. They will not stop until they find it. Adison clenched his fists. Then I cannot keep hiding. If they search long enough, they will track the crash. And if they find it, they will know someone survived. Lyara looked at him, her face torn between fear and determination. Then you must move carefully. You cannot fight them alone. But maybe there are others who can help. Adison frowned. Others. She leaned closer, her voice dropping low. Not all my people follow the council. There are some who question the old laws. Some who believe the world should not stay locked away. If they knew a human lived, they might protect you. Adison studied her face. For the first time since the crash, he saw not only a savior, but an ally, someone willing to stand against their own people for him. And in that moment he knew his fate on this world was tied to hers. Night fell slowly on the alien world, the sky painted with two moons that drifted above the forest like silver lanterns. Adison sat near the small fire Lyara had built inside the hollow of her home. The flames danced, throwing light across the living wood walls. For the first time since the crash, he felt the weight of exhaustion give way to something else. Uncertainty. Lyara moved quietly across the room, setting down bowls of steaming broth. She placed one in front of him and one for herself. The scent was sharp and earthy, filled with spices he had never known. He lifted it carefully and took a sip. The taste was strange, bitter at first, but then rich and soothing. His body, tired and sore, welcomed it. Lyara watched him as he ate, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke. Tomorrow, I will take you to someone I trust. An elder, older than the council, older than the guards. He remembers the old ways. If anyone will listen, it is him. Adison nodded. And if he does not? Her eyes flickered to the fire. Then we run. The words hung heavy between them. The next morning, Lyara led him through the forest paths, moving with a grace that made her blend into the shadows. Adison followed, every sense sharp. The forest was alive with strange calls, creatures that moved between the trees too fast for him to see. He carried nothing but a staff she had given him, carved from dark wood, smooth and heavy. After hours of walking, they reached a clearing where stone pillars rose from the earth, each covered in glowing runes. In the center sat an old figure, his body wrapped in robes woven with threads of silver. His skin was pale like Lyara's, but his hair was white, his eyes a deep shade of blue unlike the others. Lyara bowed her head. Elder Vanar. The old one turned his gaze toward her, then to Adison. His eyes narrowed, sharp even with age. You brought him here. A human. His voice was steady, carrying the weight of centuries. Lyara straightened. He is not what the council says. He is not a danger. He is... Vanar raised a hand, silencing her. He studied Adison for a long moment, his eyes seeming to pierce through flesh and bone. Then he spoke. I remember when the skies were open, when humans walked freely among the stars. I thought those days were gone. Adison stepped forward, careful with his words. My ship was not meant to invade. I came only to test it. Your defenses attacked me before I could even explain. Vanar closed his eyes, breathing slow. The council fears what they do not control. They teach the young that humans bring fire. But I remember differently. He opened his eyes again, and for the first time, a faint smile touched his lips. You carry the same fire. Yes, but also the same light. Lyara let out a breath she had been holding. Then you will help us? The elder's gaze turned serious. I will help, but the council already hunts. They sent the vanguard. They will not stop until they see your body human. Adison felt a chill at the word. Vanguard. Vanar's face hardened. The council's chosen hunters. Faster, stronger, merciless. If they find you, they will not listen to reason. They will kill you and burn the wreck of your ship until nothing remains. Adison tightened his grip on the staff. Then I fight. Lyara turned sharply. No, you cannot fight them alone. But Vaynar's eyes gleam with something deeper. Perhaps he does not need to. Perhaps he only needs to show them what makes humans different. Before Adison could ask what that meant, a sound echoed across the forest. A horn, low and haunting, carried on the wind. Lyara's face went pale. "They are close," she whispered. Vaynar stood slowly, his old bones straightening with surprising strength. "Then you must leave. Take him to the river caves. There, the vanguard will not follow. They fear what dwells below." Adison frowned. "And what dwells below?" The elder's eyes darkened. "Old things. Forgotten things. Creatures that even we cannot tame. But if you survive, they may hide you long enough to find a way." Adison met Lyara's gaze. Her violet eyes were wide, afraid but steady. She nodded once, gripping her curved blade. "Then we go." The elder raised his hand in blessing. "May the light guide you, human. May you prove the stories true." As they turned to leave, the sound of the horn came again, closer this time, followed by the crack of branches and the distant roar of voices. The vanguard were hunting, and Adison knew that his fight for survival had only just begun. The forest shook with the sound of pursuit. Heavy footsteps, sharp commands in the alien tongue. The echo of metal against wood. The vanguard were closing in fast. Adison's lungs burned as he ran, but Lyara moved like flowing water ahead of him, guiding him through winding trails only she seemed to know. Branches whipped against his arms. The ground tore beneath his boots, and the air was thick with a strange sense of the alien night. Behind them, a sudden flash of blue light struck a tree, splintering it in a burst of sparks. Adison ducked low, his heart thundering. "They are firing at us," he shouted. Lyara glanced back, her violet eyes blazing. "Keep moving. The caves are close." Another bolt slammed into ground, throwing dirt and fire into the air. Adison stumbled, but Lyara grabbed his arm, pulling him forward. He could feel her strength, small but fierce, unrelenting even as danger pressed close behind. Finally, the trees broke open into a wide ravine. Below, a river glowed faintly under the moons, its waters swirling with strange silver light. At the far side, jagged cliffs rose, dotted with dark openings like gaping mouths. "The caves," Lyara pointed. "Down there." They slid down the slope, rocks tumbling underfoot. Arrows of light hissed past them, striking the ground, each one too close for comfort. Adison gritted his teeth and threw himself forward, hitting the river bank hard. The water splashed around his legs, icy cold. But he forced himself onward. The nearest cave loomed ahead, its mouth wide and dark. Lyara rushed inside first, her blade ready, and Adison followed, the air shifting from the open night to the damp chill of stone. Inside, the light from outside faded quickly. The walls dripped with moisture, and strange veins of crystal glowed faintly along the rock. The sound of the river echoed, but beneath it, Adison swore he could hear something else. Deep, slow, like the breath of something enormous. Lyara raised a hand, signaling him to stop. She whispered, her voice almost trembling. "Do not speak loudly. The elder was right. Old things live here." Adison's skin prickled. He gripped the staff tighter, scanning the shadows. Outside, the voices of the vanguard grew faint. He could hear them shouting, their steps near the river, but none entered the caves. Lyara had been right. They feared this place. But that left him and her alone in the darkness. They moved deeper, the crystals guiding their path with soft light. The cave twisted, narrowing and widening, until they entered a vast chamber. The ceiling stretched high above, lost in shadow, and in the center of the cavern lay a pool of water, glowing faintly with the same silver light as a river. Adison stepped closer, peering into its depths. The water seemed endless, stretching down into blackness. Then, suddenly it rippled. Lyara stiffened, her blade raised. Something wakes. The water boiled, and a shape began to rise. Massive scaled, glowing with streaks of pale blue. A head emerged first, long and serpentine, with eyes that burned like molten fire. Then another head. Then another. The creature was no simple beast. It was a guardian, ancient and terrible, with 3 heads that turned in unison toward the intruders. Adison froze, every muscle locked. The beast let out a deep rumble that shook the cavern walls, a sound like thunder trapped underground. Lyara whispered, "Do not run. It hunts fear." Adison's heart pounded. His instinct screamed to flee, but he forced himself still, gripping the staff tighter. The creature lowered one of its heads, bringing its glowing eyes level with his. He felt its breath, hot and damp, roll across him. Something strange stirred inside him then. A calm, a steady fire that cut through the fear. He had been trained to face the unknown, to stand firm where others faltered. Slowly, he raised the staff, not as a weapon, but as a sign of peace. The beast's eyes flared brighter. For a long moment, silence filled the cavern, broken only by the drip of water. Then, slowly, impossibly, the creature lowered its head back toward the pool. With one last rumble, it sank beneath the glowing water, vanishing into the depths. Lyara let out the breath she had been holding. Her hands trembled as she lowered her blade. She looked at him, her eyes wide. No one has ever stood before it and lived. You calmed it. Adison swallowed hard. His voice was low. "I did not fight it. I just showed I was not afraid." Lyara stared at him for a long moment, her face flushed with something between awe and disbelief. Then she whispered, "Maybe the old stories were true." Before Adison could answer, a distant sound echoed from the cave entrance. The vanguard was still out there, waiting. But now, he was no longer the same man who had crashed on this world. And Lyara knew it too. The silence after the beast's retreat was fragile, like glass ready to shatter. The faint glow from the pool flickered across the cavern walls, painting Adison and Lyara in silver light. Both of them breathed slowly, carefully, as if any sound might summon the monster back again. Then came the echo. Heavy boots against stone. Voices sharp, guttural, reverberating through the cave entrance. The vanguard had followed them after all. Lyara's hand went to her blade, her body tensing like a coil. Adison held his staff, his knuckles white. He could see shadows stretching across the stone as the hunters advanced. 3 of them stepped into the chamber, their armor glimmering like liquid metal, each carrying weapons shaped like spears that crackled with arcs of light. Their eyes burned with the same violet glow as Lyara's, but harder, merciless. The tallest one, clearly the leader, spoke first, his voice deep and resonant. So the rumors were true. A human fell from the sky, and a traitor shelters him. His gaze fixed on Lyara with cutting disdain. Daughter of no honor. Lyara hissed something in her tongue, words sharp like steel. She raised her blade, ready to fight. Adison stepped forward, planting the staff into the ground. "If you want me, leave her out of this. She saved my life. I will not let you harm her." The vanguard leader turned his gaze toward him, eyes narrowing. "You speak boldly for a dying man. Do you think your kind still carries weight here? You are nothing, a relic of fire and ruin." Adison's chest tightened, but he did not back down. Maybe humans brought fire. Maybe we brought ruin. But we also brought something else. We brought choice. We brought the will to stand even when every odd was against us. You think I am nothing? Then strike me and see. The chamber was silent for a moment, only the faint drip of water breaking the tension. Then the leader laughed, a sound sharp as broken stone. He raised a spear, the crackling tip aimed directly at Adison's chest. The other 2 flanked him, ready to strike. Lyara stepped in front of Adison, her blade glowing faint blue. Her voice shook with fury. "If you kill him, you kill me too." The leader sneered. "So be it." But before he could thrust the spear, the cavern trembled. The pool in the center began to ripple again, waves spreading outward. The ground shook, dust falling from the ceiling. The beast stirred. All eyes turned as a massive form rose once more from the depths, 3 heads hissing, eyes burning with ancient fire. The vanguard froze. Even their proud armor seemed small before such a creature. Adison felt that strange calm return. He stepped forward again, raising the staff high. His voice rang through the chamber. "You call me nothing. Yet this beast listened when I stood unafraid. Tell me, warriors, can you do the same?" The creature's heads loomed above them, its gaze shifting between hunter and human. The vanguard leader's grip on his spear faltered. Fear flickered in his eyes. Adison's voice grew stronger. Strength is not in weapons. It is not in fear. It is in the will to protect, even when death is certain. That is what it means to be human. The beast let out a roar that shook the cave, but it did not strike. It circled once, then sank again into the glowing depths, leaving only silence and the echo of its power behind. The vanguard stumbled back, shaken. Their leader's face was pale, his voice hollow. This should not be. He lowered his spear slowly, his pride cracked. Lyara's eyes widened, all shining in them. She whispered, "They saw it too. They saw what you are." Adison stood tall, the staff steady in his hands. "Now choose. Hunt me and prove your fear, or leave and remember that even a human can face what you cannot." The leader glared at him one last time, but no words came. He turned sharply, motioning to his soldiers. Reluctantly, they withdrew, their footsteps echoing into the distance until the cavern was silent once more. Adison finally let out the breath he had been holding. His arms trembled, not from fear now, but from the weight of what had just happened. He turned to Lyara. Her eyes burned with something new, not only relief, not only respect, something deeper, rawer, harder to name. She reached out, her fingers brushing his arm gently, almost as if to make sure he was real. "You faced them without lifting a blade," she whispered. "You faced a guardian and lived. No one in my people could do that. No one but you." Adison placed his hand lightly over hers. Then maybe the stories were true. Maybe humans still carry that light. Lyara's lips curved into a faint smile, fragile but shining. "And maybe I was right to save you." In that dark cavern, with the river glowing and the echoes of danger fading, Adison knew one truth with absolute certainty. He was no longer just a survivor on a strange world. He was a part of it now. And Lyara, the girl who smirked from the shadows when she first saw him, was no longer a stranger. She was the beginning of something more. The journey back through the forest was quiet. The air was damp with morning mist, and pale light from the twin suns filtered through the leaves. Adison walked beside Lyara, his staff steady in his hand, his body aching but his spirit strangely light. Behind them, the cave lay hidden, keeping its secrets. Lyara glanced at him now and then, her expression unreadable, until finally she spoke. "The vanguard will not forget this. They will not tell the council everything, but word will spread. Others will know what happened in the cave." Adison nodded. "Then we do not run. We go to them first. We face them." Lyara stopped walking. Her eyes widened, her voice sharp. "You want to face the council? They will judge you before you can speak. They will condemn you." Adison turned to her, his gaze steady. "Then let them, but I will not hide anymore. If they want to see what a human is, then they will hear it from me." Lyara stared at him, her violet eyes filled with conflict. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she gave a faint, almost reluctant smile. "You are either the bravest man I have ever met, or the most foolish." "Maybe both," Adison said quietly. By the time they reached her village, the sun was high. The settlement was carved into the living forest itself, with towers of wood and stone rising like branches, connected by glowing bridges of crystal. The people stopped to stare as Lyara led him through the streets. Whispers spread quickly, hushed voices echoing. The council chamber was a great hall, its ceiling lost in shadow, its walls carved with symbols that pulsed with light. At the far end sat the counselors, 5 figures draped in robes, their eyes sharp and cold. The lead counselor, a woman with hair like silver fire, rose to her feet. "Lyara, you stand accused of treachery. You sheltered the intruder. You defied the law." Lyara lifted her chin, her voice steady. "I sheltered him because he is not what you claim. He is not fire. He is not ruin. He is proof the old stories were true." The council murmured, their eyes turning toward Adison. The lead counselor's gaze hardened. "Then let him speak, if he dares." Adison stepped forward. The hall was silent, every eye on him. He took a slow breath, his voice echoing clear. "I did not come here to harm. I came by accident, and you tried to destroy me before I could even explain. But I lived. I live because one among you saw more than fear. Lyara saw me not as a threat, but as a life worth saving. He paused, letting the words hang heavy. Your vanguard hunted me. They chased me into the caves, where even they feared to walk. I stood before the Guardian, and it did not kill me. Do you know why? The counselors leaned forward, silent, because I did not fight it. I did not show fear. I showed it that I would stand my ground, no matter what. That is what it means to be human. We may fall, we may burn, but we will rise again, not with cruelty, not with fear, with will. A low murmur spread through the hall. The lead counselor's eyes narrowed, but she did not speak. Adison's voice grew stronger. You tell your people humans are ruin. But what I faced in that cave was ruin itself, and I walked away alive. Not by weapon, not by strength, by choice. And if that does not mean something, then perhaps you fear the truth more than you fear me. Silence followed. Long, deep, heavy. The counselors exchanged glances, their sharp certainty shaken. At last, the lead counselor spoke. Her voice was colder than before, but quieter. You speak well, human. Too well. But words do not erase fear. You may stay for now, under watch. But if you bring ruin, the blame will be hers. She pointed at Lyara, her violet eyes hard as stone. Lyara did not flinch. She stepped closer to Adison, her voice firm. Then I accept it. The chamber stirred with whispers again. The counselor sat back slowly, her expression unreadable. So be it. The trial was over. Not victory, not defeat. Something in between. As they stepped out of the hall, Lyara let out a shaky breath, relief breaking across her face. They could have killed us both, but they did not. Adison gave a faint smile. Maybe they saw something they could not explain. Lyara looked at him then, her eyes softer than ever before. You are dangerous, Adison. Not because of what you destroy, but because of what you change. For the first time since the crash, Adison felt something stir deep inside. A sense that his journey here was not an accident, not just survival. He had brought something to this world, something even its people had forgotten. Hope. As the twin sun sank low in the sky, painting the village in gold and violet light, Lyara stood beside him, her hand brushing his. She did not pull away this time, and Adison knew, with quiet certainty, that he was no longer just a lost pilot on a hostile world. He was part of a story that was only beginning.